some people in the room. The talk will take somewhere in the region of 20 minutes or so. I've got Erin and Sally with me who are going to field or help me field some of the questions if you have them, to pop them in the chat. And then at the end, we'll have some specific time to ask me any specific questions you have about postgraduate funding at the university. So you can see there on the screen, we're going to cover tuition fees, sources of funding, budgeting, and support that's available to you as a PG student at Northumbria. And I appreciate that we might have a mix of audience on the call this afternoon. This is aimed mainly at students looking to join us either in academic year 23-24 or indeed in 24-25. And I know there'll be a mixture probably of international and home students on the call as well. So some of the information will not be relevant to everybody, but as we go through, I'll make that clear during the call. So firstly, tuition fees for postgraduate study, and unlike undergraduate, if you've been here as a UK home student, they vary a bit more than what you would do as a postgraduate student. So typically for a UK student, we're looking at somewhere between 9,250 to about 11,250 depending on the program. So it does depend on the program, and that is also the same for international. It's normally somewhere in the region of about 17 to 19,000 for international student. As the website suggests, check the individual course page, and that will let you know what the fee is for your program that you're interested in studying. For UK full-time and part-time postgraduate students, tuition fees are going to be paid in full or on or before enrollment, or in 3 equal installments with the first payment due immediately. So that's slightly different to perhaps what you might have been used to at undergraduate level. And for students studying on our carousel distance learning programs, which may be of relevance to some people on the call, the fees are payable up front on a module by module basis. So tuition fees do vary per student and per program, but presumably most people on this call have already got some idea of what program it is they are looking at. If you look at the fees, funding and scholarship section of that particular program on our website, it will take you through the tuition fees and arrangements for that particular program. So please check that out, what is relevant to yourself. Moving on to some of the sources of funding, and this is aimed primarily at UK students on the call. Most of you would have already be currently enrolled or have already completed a undergraduate program. Now the funding for postgraduate students through the master's loan in England is slightly different, or quite different to the funding packages you might be used to as an undergraduate student. So whereas an undergraduate student would access a tuition fee and a maintenance loan, for postgraduate study there's only one loan, which is the PG master's loan, and as it explains there, that is worth £12,167. That's for 23-24. The 24-25 value is yet to be announced, and that's for the whole of the course. And unlike what you may have experienced before, that loan is non-means tested. It's paid in 3 installments per year, and it's paid directly to you as a contribution towards tuition fees and living costs. So that is your bread and butter, if you like, your PG Masters loan that you can receive to assist you with your tuition fee and living costs throughout the year. Different to, and you pay the university directly through the fees through the loan you receive, rather than the tuition fee coming to the university via the student financing, which it would do in your undergraduate program. So bear in mind that the fee, the loan of 12,167 covers both fees and living costs. Applications for funding for that are currently open and opened earlier this spring. So if you haven't yet, if you're going to study at postgraduate level next year and haven't yet sorted out your funding, please do so via the Student Finance England website. The dates and installments and the variety of money available for students from Northern Ireland, Wales and Scotland is different. So if you're funded by SAS, SFNI or SFW, then you should look at their own individual websites for information. On to some more specific programs now. So students who are moving on to do masters in allied healthcare professional programs such as nursing and midwifery, the master students programs are funded in a very similar way to how it would be if you were an undergraduate student. Excuse me. So there's a tuition fee loan, there's a maintenance loan for living costs, which is partially means tested, not like a full means test it would be if you were in an undergraduate student. And there are extra sources of funding available that we'll come on to in a minute, such as the child care grant, parents earning allowance, and adult dependent grant. It is available to you even if you've had previous UG funding, but it's not available to you if you've already registered in the profession the course leads to. So if you've already done nursing degree and you registered as a nurse, then unfortunately you're not allowed to take that UG funding again. PG funding again. But it is the same otherwise as it would be if you were an undergraduate student. So if you've studied a allied healthcare professional program with us before, looking to do it again at master's level, then the likelihood is that the funding packages available to you are going to be very similar to what you've been used to. Mentioned there what those about those funding packages, and just a reminder if you are familiar with them what they are. It's the NHS training grant, which is available to all students, and that's worth £5,000 per academic year. There's travel and dual accommodation expenses, and that's for students in allied healthcare professional programs who, when on practice placements, can claim back costs for travel and or temporary accommodation, which are over the usual costs they would spend when attending university. So if you have to move away from Newcastle or go to a far distant place to do a placement, then you can expect to reclaim the difference between the cost that it would cost you to get there versus the cost that it would usually cost you to get to university. If you're a parent who's joining us on a postgraduate program, then you can access up to £2,000 per academic year if you have parental responsibility for a child who is either under the age of 15 or under the age of 17 if that child has special educational needs. And there is an NHS exceptional support fund, and that's available to students who experience unforeseen financial hardship during their studies, and that's normally taken if all other available means of funding have been exhausted. So it's not something you would apply for at the beginning of the year, but if at some point during the year it does appear that you are going to find yourself in difficulty, then that option is there available to you, and you can actually get up to about £3,000 per year on that. So it is a worthwhile piece of expense. And unlike the loans, these are grants, so they're not required to be paid back. Okay. If you're doing a social work program at master's level, there's the social work bursary, which is a contribution towards your tuition fees, which is up to £4,052 for full-time students. And there's also a non-repayable social work bursary towards living cost, and that's made up of a non-means tested basic grant and a means tested maintenance grant. Okay, and there's the figures on the screen for you there. Also, like the NHS fund makes a contribution towards your placement cost travel, and like NHS, you can receive things like the childcare grant and parent learning allowance, which we'll come on to in a moment. We only have a capped number of places available for this bursary, so it's not guaranteed, but you can also apply for the PG Masters loan if you did not meet the eligibility criteria for the social work bursary. So there are options available to you. Teachers, if you're thinking of doing teacher training, then at a postgraduate level, then the funding is similar as it would be if you're doing an undergraduate degree with us or an undergraduate program with us through Student Finance England. Usual caveat of Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland would have to check out their own websites for that information. There is a tuition fee loan, which is non-means tested, and a maintenance loan, which is partially means tested. And again, we'll go through the extra funding around childcare in a moment. The Department for Education also has a number of postgraduate training bursaries to encourage teachers. So if you're looking to get into teaching education, then generally the funding packages available to you are pretty similar to what they would be if you were studying on an undergraduate program with us before. So that's good news for potential teachers. Moving on to postgraduate doctoral programs. So assume most people on the call probably looking at taught programs, so a master's. But if you're looking at doing a PhD or a PG doctoral program, if you're not receiving Research Council funding, then you can actually borrow up to a maximum of £28,673 for your entire program. That's the entire program, not per year, entire program. And it's a non-means tested loan, and it's divided across each year of your course and paid in 3 installments per year. And again, that's paid to you as a contribution towards your tuition fees and your living costs. I think that is the same for Scotland, Northern Ireland. If you are from Wales, you can have a look at their websites too. So if you're interested in doing a PhD or similar, or some form of doctoral program, then the funding package for the entire program is important to note that that's for the entire program is there for you, 28,673. The Disabled Students Allowance is to support you to cover the cost of any study-related costs you have because of a mental health problem, long-term illness, or any other disability. Not means tested, it doesn't need to be paid back. And to be eligible for it, you must qualify for student finance from Student Finance England. With noting that in most cases, the Disabled Students Allowance is not extra cash. It is extra resource to allow you to be able to complete your program. So it could mean some adjustments in your accommodation, a wheelchair, extra time in exams, whatever it means. It's normally so obviously there's a cost attached to that, which is what those contribute towards. So just bear in mind it doesn't necessarily mean extra funding, but we have a student accessibility team here at Northumbria who can advise you on the Disabled Student Allowance, which is available to all students who qualify for it at Northumbria. Coming on to some more specific funding at the university. This is university specific to Northumbria, and there's a few scholarships that are listed. This list is not exclusive, so there's not an exhaustive list of all our scholarships. So my recommendation would be that if one of these doesn't apply to you or you're not successful, please do have a look on our website or through other websites, and scholarships are out there to be looked at. It's obviously not applicable to everybody, but there are some options if you are certainly in specific criteria to be eligible for one. So most students will receive the 20% alumni discount. So if you are an alumni, so if you've already studied a degree at Northumbria University, if you've already done your UG degree here, then you will automatically be applied the 20% alumni discount to your fee. There's a Vice Chancellor Scholarship which was run for a few years. This is happening again in 23-24. That is £3,000, and that's for extraordinary students joining us in a full-time Masters in September 23. There's 50 students who will receive a 50% tuition fee reduction on the Master Your Future Scholarship. There are sports scholarships available to student athletes. And as I said before, there's a high range of other scholarships available. Some are specific to courses and some are linked to personal circumstances and your skills. The Aziz Foundation Scholarship is for British Muslims who wish to study a 1-year full-time postgraduate course in Northumbria. So that applies to you, then that is your option. But generally speaking, those are the options that the university provides to students for your postgraduate program. If you're looking at doing a doctoral program, then it's very much on a case-by-case basis. My recommendation would be to contact your supervisor or potential supervisor to ask them what was available, because there could be a range of studentships, including some that pay full fees for research degrees, and some also provide an annual stipend for living costs. So if you're doing a PhD, funding obviously is a big sort of topic. There are things out there, but make sure you do your research. I think I'll answer the questions at the end if that's okay. Thank you for submitting that one. Back to UK students, if you are able to get universal credit, this is sort of external funding. If you're on a low income, studying full time, any of the following: if you're responsible for a child, you live with your partner and they're eligible for universal credit, or you're disabled and are getting one of the allowances as listed below, you might be able to get universal credit if you're studying part-time and available for work. Okay, so if that applies to you, then please have a look into it, because it could be a further source of support. And then after that, really, our additional funding is, sort of up to you, showing your own initiative and your own sort of nous and wherever you want to go with it. So obviously, many students do take up part-time employment. So salary or wages from your part-time employment could be a way of contributing towards your funding. We have a Graduate Futures team here at Northumbria who offer guidance and support with seeking employment. So if you do come to university and think that you would want to or need to have a part-time job along your studies, then the Graduate Futures team can advise you on that and also point you in the right direction for such employment. And that obviously can make a very valid contribution to your time and money when you're here at the university. Employer sponsorship, many students will have a word if they're working at the moment and want to come and do a master's in a relevant area to the business that they're working in. We have found many times in the past that employers can offer a free contribution or even full sponsorship for a PG program. So look into that. Obviously, have a word with family and friends, people, parents, grandparents, uncles, aunties, whatever, because they, may be able to help you as well when it comes to funding your master's studies with us. And savings, of course, obviously, is one way of paying for tuition fees on top of the loan. There are a number of charities, foundations, and trusts out there. There are a number of studentships out there, mainly funded by UK Research and Innovation Council, crowdfunding, other loans, weird grants, bursaries, and scholarships. I mean, that slide really encompasses the fact that actually there's potentially quite a lot out there for postgraduate funding. I think my message is that it depends quite considerably on what the program of study is that you are studying, and your own personal circumstances. But if you're prepared to put the time and effort in to research what's available, then it could be worth your while, because there are a number of different options available. So, we put there weird grants, bursaries, and scholarships. That's obviously a bit strange terminology from our perspective, but that's kind of what they are. They're ones that you wouldn't normally hear of, but it might be that you find something that you land upon, something that helps you out, even if it's not a full scholarship, that will at least contribute towards your tuition or living costs here. So really, really do make sure that when you're thinking about funding for postgraduate study, I think my message is, if you compare it with undergraduate, there probably is more out there in terms of, the original package isn't as generous, if that makes sense, but there is probably more out there if you go digging for it than there is for undergraduate study. So just bear that in mind when you're putting together your applications and thinking about enrolling on the program. And obviously, one of our main concerns is not necessarily that you're going to be able to afford to pay your tuition fees. That's one element of it, but of course, living costs that go alongside it. So as you would have done if you're an undergraduate student or still an undergraduate student or have been an undergraduate student, budgeting. It doesn't really matter if you're a student or not. I think it's really, really important. So have a think about the type of funding available for your program. My advice, as I said before, try and exhaust all avenues of funding before first, and then obviously you've got the PG loan as well. Think about where you're going to live. Think about how far that is from the campus. Think about how you're going to get to the campus. Think about the cost of living in that sense. Obviously, lifestyle, hobbies, any other financial commitment, entirely dependent on you. But just ensure that really our main concern is, A, have you got somewhere to live? And B, have you got something, can you afford to eat? So please bear in mind that those are the two essentials. Anything else, unfortunately, isn't. But if you budget correctly, then there are obviously opportunities for you to be able to then also carry extracurricular activities outside of your studies. So can't emphasize enough how important that is, budgeting, but ensure that you do it. And we do have, as I think, there's another slide coming in a second. Just a few other bits and pieces. If you're a full-time student, then you can get a council tax exemption or discounts. The NHS low income scheme is available to all PG students, so it can help with health costs if you do require them, such as your dental appointment, your prescriptions. And if you are coming onto the program with pre-existing debt, then the charity that we recommend is a charity called Step Change, who are a debt charity, and my view is that you would work with them to deal with that before you came onto the program. That would be my recommendation. So a few things to think about there on budgeting, and just sort of finally to help you with that, we're very, very fortunate at the university to have partnered with a company called Blackbullion, and Blackbullion's an online platform based around financial well-being, and that is to develop your money skills, confidence, and maximize your opportunities. So you can create an account before you join and engage in the preparing for study element of the program. And then when you get here, you can change your profile over to the student email, and you'll get some access to all the learning pathways. So there's various different topics of conversation covered with Blackbullion: student life, budgeting, earning, investing, saving, etc., etc. Plus, you get access to workshops, competitions. The other week, I was handing out donuts because people had attended a talk that we'd done with Blackbullion. Really good piece of mobile-friendly software, helpful for budgeting, helpful for financial well-being. So please do have a look at it now prior to coming to see us or enrolling with us, because I think it is really, really crucial. And it's worth saying that, the idea is that it gives you financial well-being. Most of the hardship cases that we would refer to would probably be, unfortunately, people who've not handled their finances in a necessarily responsible way. That's not always a judgment call, but what I'm saying by that is that please do budget, and do not put yourself in hardship through frivolous spending. And there's some information there about Blackbullion and a little QR code to take you to their website if you want to use the opportunity to sign up after this talk. So I'll just leave that on the screen for 2 or 3 seconds, just so people have the opportunity to do that with their smartphone, or you can go to blackbullion.com if you need. And that is it, really. I just realized I think I got through that entire presentation and forgot to mention that my name is Chris Morgan, and I'm one of the welfare and funding advisors at the university. So we are here, and it's probably worth reiterating before we go on to any questions that, alongside the support that we've and the funding that we've offered and talked to you about this afternoon, that there is a team of people just like me who are in place to assist students with their financial well-being, and that is to complement the Blackbullion piece that we have. There are, we are running budgeting workshops. We are happy to support students in any way we can when it comes to their financial well-being. So if you're not sure when you're here, if you're struggling, then please do get in touch. But if you have any questions in the meantime, our email address is on the presentation there. So that is the presentation. Does anyone have any comments or questions? And I'm just having a look through our list here. So the first person I can see was Nanisha. Apologies if I've pronounced that incorrect. Who asked, how can I get funding support to pay my school fees, public health? I'm in Nigeria. Again, go to our website, look at the particular program that you are interested in studying, and look at the fees, funding and scholarship section. Obviously, I do appreciate if you are from Nigeria that a lot of the funding options I've spoken to you about today are not particularly going to be relevant to you, but it could be that you find something through the links that I've sent on the website which is relevant to students from Nigeria. So please do that and try and exhaust all options before you decide to make the decision to come on the program. So I think that's really, really important that you know you're going to have sufficient funds to live off and work and study whilst you're here. Erica, what are the deadlines for 23-24 scholarships? They vary per scholarship. So if you just Google Northumbria University's scholarships, then and I've just realized, sorry, Erin's answered some of these questions already. That will come up with some of the answers that you have, including the term dates. So thanks, Erin, for answering those questions. And sorry, I only when I scrolled down that I realised that you'd answered them. Apologies. No problem. From my side, I don't have anything else to say. Just wondered if there was, as Erin has put, any final questions. We'll wait for 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes or so. For anyone who's wanting to type anything, if nothing's quite come to mind yet, feel free, and we're happy to hang on.
Great, thank you, Chris. Just to add for everyone, I know you might be typing a question or thinking of a question just before we wrap up, but I'm going to pop another link to a page on our website for everybody into the chat box now, and it's just the general kind of opening page for all of the information that Chris has just covered. There's some additional links there, contact details, etc. So it's a bit of a summary of what we've just covered. So I'm going to pop that link in the chat there now.
There was a question just going there before about the deadline for pre-registration nursing mental health. I don't know the answer to that. I presume that was an application question. I don't know, Erin, if you know the answer there.
Yeah, I can see that question there. What I'll do, if it's all right with you, I'm going to pop an email address in also. If you've got any questions specifically about your application, the admission process, anything that's kind of personal to your application to Northumbria, I'm going to pop an email in there now. And if you can just pop some email details in across to us, and we can get that over to the relevant team. So that's something that our admissions team will be able to answer for you, and they can look directly at all of your data, your application, and get back to you on a personalised basis. So I'll pop an email address in there now, and if you don't mind popping something across to us, that would be great. Samuel, also I can see you popped a question there about accommodation. Similarly, I'm going to pop an email address in there. If you can just, any questions you have around accommodation as well, if you can just ping them through to this email, that would be great. And I can pass them on to our accommodation team, because they're obviously the experts in terms of what we have, what's left available for this year, etc. So I'll just be 1 second there. Cool. It's quite a simple email address, ug.events@northumbria.ac.uk. Any general questions you have about, as I say, your specific application, your admissions process, we can get back to you with a personalised response from the admissions team, or equally, if you've got those questions around accommodation, I can get you in touch with our accommodation colleagues, because we do have a specialised team and they can give you all the information you may need for that. No problem.
To answer Lindsay's question about, is the £2,000 NHS student parent funding for children under 15 years per child, the answer is no, it's not. It's just £2,000 if you have, no relevance to the number of children that you have.
Super.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no problem. I'll pop that email again there now. Oops. ug.events@northumbria.ac.uk. And if you email any general queries you have about the session or anything additional, we can pass those on.
And like I said, if you do have any questions related to any of the topics that I've raised today, then the email address is still on screen for anything related to funding, or indeed if you're an international student and have got a question around your visa, which obviously I know isn't the topic of today's call, but if it is of relevance to you, then please pop it in that send an email around that email address, and someone will come back to you.
Okay, I think we'll close there if nobody has any more specific questions around Chris's content. We'll close there, but as we've said, anything more specifically related to yourself, to your personal circumstances, or your application process, qualifications, anything like that, and also the question, I think it was from Samuel, in regards to accommodation, if you can pop them through to that email address, and we can put you in touch with the relevant teams who specialise in those areas and can get back to you offline, privately, and they can discuss your personal circumstances. That would be great. But thank you for joining us, everybody, this afternoon. I hope that was helpful. I know there was a lot of information there, but that was the beauty of having Chris on the call with us. He's one of our experts on campus, so it just also gives you a flavour of the areas of expertise we have and how much support is available for you at Northumbria. So that's great. Thank you, Chris. I'll close there, but hopefully that was helpful. As I say, any further questions specifically about yourself and your circumstances, please email that email address I've popped in the chat, and hopefully see everyone on campus soon.